Hello, BookTube. It's the 1st of March, so hold on to your deer stalkers, because that means the beginning of March Mystery Madness. A big BookTube event in which a whole bunch of BookTubers are hosting a celebration of all things mystery for the month of March. And I was asked to help with the hosting duties. First time I've ever hosted an event on BookTube. And I want to start today with a little bit of term defining. Is that Jesuit enough for you? I want to start with a general discussion of what we actually mean when we refer to murder mysteries. To mystery series, you're going to hear them discussed this month in bewildering variety, a million different forms. Do they have a common DNA? And to help with this question, I'm going to read you something. You don't always seem to mind if I read you stuff, but it comes from an anthology that was made about 50 years ago by Howard Haycroft called The Art of the Mystery Story. Great big thing. An indispensable reference work for mysteries if you're interested in reading about them in addition to reading them, which a lot of people who love mysteries are not, so it's perfectly okay. But this reprints in one handy volume a huge amount of seminal writing about mysteries. It's not an anthology of mystery stories. It's a collection of essays about them. And one of the most famous of those came out almost a decade ago by a man named Ronald Knox. And Monsignor Knox was a big fan of murder mysteries and also wrote some himself. And he wrote a Decalogue. He wrote a 10 Commandments for what does and does not constitute a murder mystery. And I think it's fascinating, and especially in light of 2018, in light of the huge variety that mysteries have taken on today and have since his time. So I thought what I would do is read you his Decalogue with a little elaboration on one of them that's going to cause you all to wince, because it's 2018, and we're up to our ham hocks and super fragile SJW millennials. I will help you when we get to that point. I will help you to get through the crisis. Here's his Decalogue of what does and doesn't constitute the DNA of a murder mystery. Number 1. The criminal must be someone mentioned in the early part of the story, but must not be anyone whose thoughts the reader has been allowed to follow. Number 2, all supernatural or preternatural agencies are ruled out as a matter of course. Number 3, not more than one secret room or passage is allowable. That one shows a little bit of dating. Not many people do that anymore, but once upon a time, oh my, it was the norm. Number 4, no hitherto undiscovered poisons may be used, nor any appliance which will need a long scientific explanation at the end. And as you can tell, that one is sort of an appendix to number 2, because any scientific explanation that you need a huge abstruse discourse on at the end of the story is essentially magic. You didn't know it. You had no idea that it existed. You had no idea how it operated, and couldn't know until you were told. Those two go together. Number 5. Are you ready? This is the tough one. Control yourselves. No Chinaman must figure in the story. Now, before you go thinking that Monsignor Knox was a raging racist, allow me to read you his description. He elaborates on every one of these commandments. And he's not being racist here. He's aiming at a specific trick that mystery writers of his day used way in excess. So let me read you his elaboration, and those of you who have stuck around. I'm sure you're made of stern enough stuff to hear that and not recoil. Why should this be so, I do not know, unless we can find a reason for it in our Western habit of assuming that the celestial is over-equipped in the matter of brains and under-equipped in the matter of morals. I only offer it as a fact of observation that, if you are turning over the pages of a book and come across some mention of the, quote, slit-like eyes of Chin Lu, close quote, you had best put it down. It is bad. And what you can see by that is that what Monsignor Knox means is a figure, in this case a foreigner, in this case just for easy reference, a Chinaman, which was the derogatory foreigner phrase of the day. You know as well as I do the ones that exist today. They are different, but not in spirit, just in detail. What he means by this is that a writer who is lazy enough to bring on such a person only to have them function as a fulcrum of suspicion is a bad writer. That's what he means by no Chinaman must figure in the story, regardless of what the Chinaman is. You can't have someone in the story who's only there to arouse suspicion. That is lazy writing. So there you go. That's number 5. Number 6, no accident must ever help the detective, nor must he ever have an unaccountable intuition that proves to be right. Number 7, the detective must not himself commit the crime. Number 8, the detective must not light on any clues which are not instantly produced for the inspection of the reader. In other words, you don't want to read him saying that he found something on the ground, held it up, and said, aha, this looks crucial, but doesn't tell you what it is. Forbidden. Number 9, the stupid friend of the detective, the Watson, must not conceal any thoughts which pass through his mind. His intelligence must be slightly, but very slightly, below the average reader. And number 10, twin brothers and doubles generally must not appear unless we have been duly prepared for them. And I wanted to add to that, because in the same year that Monsignor Knox came out with his Decalogue, another writer also came out with rules for what governs a murder mystery, what is and is not a murder mystery, a form of popular writing that mid-20th century snooty intellectual Jacques Barzoum described as a process of bringing order out of chaos. And that writer was S.S. Van Dyne. He was a murder mystery writer named S.S. Van Dyne. And that was a pen name for a hack journalist named Willard Wright, who wrote for the L.A. Times forever and ever, wrote wherever anybody would send him a check that wouldn't bounce. And was a terrific writer. He's an absolutely terrific writer. His murder mysteries have gone out of print, and I think will probably stay out of print. But what I wouldn't give if somebody could find the huge body of book reviews that he did. He was an absolutely joyously vicious book reviewer. But he did 20 rules for what constitutes a detective story. And a lot of them are very good, but I want to read one of them to you, rule number 15, because it adds significantly to what Monsignor Knox wrote. Rule number 15 is, the truth of the problem must at all times be apparent, provided the reader is shrewd enough to see it. By this I mean that if the reader, after learning the explanation for the crime, should reread the book, he would see the solution had, in a sense, been staring him in the face, that all the clues had really pointed to the culprit, and that, if he had been as clever as the detective, he could have solved the mystery himself without going on to the final chapter. That the clever reader does often thus solve the problem goes without saying. I think that's a fascinating elaboration, that bit about rereading. That if you reread the story, it should work the second time. The element of surprise, of the unusual, once removed, should be revealed as not crucial. And those are, of course, many people have come out with rules, including Dashiell Hammett, who does the most famous one of modern times. But so I could do a video talking about the rules of murder mysteries, all day long. I could do them all month long, one every day. At least 30 writers have written such rules. But what I want to know is, what do you think of these rules or other rules? What applies and what doesn't in your own reading? Do any of these strike you as right? I'll try to remember to write them down below. But what is it when you read a murder mystery? When you read murder mysteries that you're going to do this month, what is it that kills a murder mystery for you? What is it that ruins it? What would your own rules be? And that's how I'm going to start off with March Mystery Matters, is a categorical discussion. What is the animal we're talking about? And then tomorrow we'll move on to even more boring stuff. Thank you, BookTube.